I have to say, Darren Jones's intervention has gone down terribly with his party. I've been getting a bit of a reaction to it from MPs. One off the record described it as mad, just weird, pointing out that, even if you were sacked, you should be making this government a success. I think the timing of the intervention in particular, it looks almost like a knee-jerk reaction to losing a government job.
When it comes to the state of the public finances, it takes a conscious effort of will to find reasons to be cheerful. Take today, for example. Figures released show the government borrowed £16 billion last month to cover the negative gap between public spending and income. Yes, it was a slightly less bad number than it had been anticipated, and yes, borrowing was down by a third compared with June 2025, but that should prompt only the thinnest of smiles, because the overall picture is grim. The national debt is close to £3 trillion, pretty much the same size as annual national income. Servicing the still rising debt is costing well over £100 billion per year. The figures are dizzying. What's clear is we are in a deep, intractable fiscal mess, and it will colour every move Andy Burnham and his new Chancellor John Healey try to make. Today is a case in point. Looking for a quick political win on the cost of living, the Treasury released a dawn news flash announcing that VAT would be taken off energy bills from October. The average household will save £45 over the course of a year. Great! But how is this quick hit to government revenue being paid for? Well, Team Burnham says it's more than covered by the savings involved in the PM's decision to cancel the rollout of a digital ID scheme. Is that actually true? Well, not according to one politician who responded to the move on social media with a bucket load of scepticism. Good news that VAT will be cut on electricity bills, he posted, but, and here is the kicker, the digital ID programme was unfunded. The government will have to set out how it will pay for its new policies at the budget. Was that a barb from one of Kemi Badenoch's economic team? No, it was a political slap from Darren Jones, who was, until PM Burnham's purge of the Starmerites yesterday, Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister. In the end, paying for the VAT cut on energy bills is small potatoes. But if even that is a promise that's hard to deliver, then just consider the difficulties to come. For example, Chancellor Healey has to find a way to pay for the extra defence spending he insisted was imperative for Britain's security when he was Secretary of State for Defence. In the autumn budget, he's got to find an extra £4.7 billion from somewhere. But if he's to make good on his own powerfully argued vision for military renewal by 2030, that bill will go much higher very quickly. The new PM wants to use these early days in power to project ambition, big ideas and plans which promise a better life for the many, not the few. He has energy and he is positive, qualities his predecessor fell short on. But in the end, politics is the art of the possible, not the impossible. The reality of the public finances always bites back. Burnham wants to lead an activist, interventionist government which he believes will kickstart growth. But right now, the growth isn't there. So who will pay for the Burnham vision? I'm Stephen Sackur, and this is The Times at One on Times Radio. Well, the first meeting of the Burnham cabinet has been convened. The Prime Minister reportedly told his new cabinet that we need to be a cost of living government, give the people a sense that help is coming. Anna Mikhailova, political editor of Times Radio, is again outside Downing Street, outside number 10, I should say, in Downing Street. Welcome, Anna. Just give me a sense of how it seems that first cabinet meeting went.
Well, it's still ongoing, but we have had all the main players walk in. Most of them chose to walk through the front door. Ed Miliband lingered and gave a sort of regal wave to reporters as he walked in, which one of the veteran snappers just told me thought looked a little bit like he was milking it. Most of them didn't say anything, although most seemed pretty chirpy. I did manage to get a couple of words out of Chris Bryant, the new Northern Ireland secretary, who, when asked how he was feeling about the new job, he said it was daunting. Make of that what you will. But I think, Team Burnham, the latest is they are expecting the cabinet to go on for quite a while. So certainly we will be getting those readouts as they happen afterwards.
We will get more in due course, I'm sure. But for now, just talk me through the significance of what was, to many people, a surprising pick of John Healey as Chancellor, and then putting Wes Streeting, who clearly expected a big job, but nobody really thought he would end up at the Ministry of Defence. He's in Defence, so you've now got John Healey, who was the champion of spending much more on defence, as Chancellor running the Treasury, and you've got Wes Streeting as the man who needs the money to rebuild the military. How is all that going to work?
Well, look, Wes Streeting going to Defence was a surprise last night. I think everyone was expecting Wes Streeting to get a big job, and until yesterday, it looked like that job would be Home Secretary, just because there appeared to be a likely vacancy from Shabana Mahmood. When that didn't happen, then yes, he was in line for a job. There was expectation that he might go back to health, where he was before. But I think in terms of the defence brief, Wes Streeting is not known for many pronouncements on defence or a background in it. He obviously hasn't got a military background. He is, however, going to probably work quite well with John Healey. I don't see any major clashes brewing there. And in terms of direction from Andy Burnham on defence more generally, in terms of the bigger picture, the Chancellor appointment is much more significant in that. So putting John Healey there in the context of the recent defence investment plan, the funding row that Healey quit over is sending quite a clear signal that he wants to move away from the Rachel Reeves approach to defence, and effectively signals that he is happy finding some of that more money there, even if it means painful cuts elsewhere, which we know John Healey has said should be necessary.
Money, of course, is at the centre of everything, and this government is having to deal with, as I said before, a huge fiscal mess. It's not going to be made easier if very recently sacked cabinet ministers like Darren Jones raise questions from the very get-go about some of the decisions Andy Burnham's taking. And I'm thinking, of course, about Darren Jones posting on social media some questions about the funding of the cut in energy bills that has been, one of the biggest moves made by Andy Burnham thus far. It suggests the Starmerites might be quite awkward.
It does, but I have to say Darren Jones's intervention has gone down terribly with his party. I've been getting a bit of a reaction to it from MPs. One off the record described it as mad, just weird, pointing out that, even if you were sacked, you should be making this government a success. I think the timing of the intervention in particular, it looks almost like a knee-jerk reaction to losing a government job, one that specifically is very pointedly trying to say that Andy Burnham's plans are not funded at the very time when Number 10 and Burnham personally were yesterday trying to really send the signal that any promises he makes would be funded. He yesterday repeatedly said things like, I won't take risks with the public finances, I'm going to be prudent. They really want to send that signal because they're very aware that not only is he coming in without having fought an election or run on any manifesto, he is also coming in the middle of the start of recess and the summer recess, which means that any big announcements are not then going to be made to Parliament and discussed and debated by MPs. And to the public that might not be a significant thing, but in the context of a parliamentary democracy where Andy Burnham wants to look like someone who is not just running things from number 10 with a small circle around him, and he's trying to be inclusive, especially with his party, and make them feel loved in a way that Keir Starmer didn't. I think, the Darren Jones comment really doesn't help. It also, by the way, makes Keir Starmer's government look pretty shambolic to have spent so much time talking about something that he now admits Darren Jones now admits is unfunded.